Clare stood barefoot in the rain, her hands trembling, her nightgown soaked and clinging to her skin. Her stomach swollen with life told a story that her lips never could. She was only 17, and the child growing inside her belonged to the very man now dragging her across the mud. "Please, Uncle Fred, please," she sobbed, her voice hoarse from screaming. Fred's eyes, once warm with false affection, now burned with something darker: shame, rage, and something more cruel: jealousy. "Shut up," he snapped, yanking her arm harder. "You ruined everything. You were supposed to stay hidden. Now everyone knows." "But it wasn't my fault. Do you think I care? Do you think anyone will believe you?" He let go of her arm for a second and pointed to her belly. This disgrace is proof I failed. My brother gave me everything, and I still ended up second." Clare cried louder now, not just from the cold or the pain, but from the betrayal. Fred turned to a parked van in the shadows. A man waited by the open door, holding some money in his hand. Clare didn't understand what was happening, until Fred nodded. "Take her. I don't care where. Just make sure I never see her again." Lightning split the sky as the rain continued. The man grabbed Clare's wrist, forcing her into the van. She screamed and tried to fight, but her energy was no match. As the door slammed shut, Fred lit a cigarette, exhaled, and watched the van disappear into the night. But what Fred didn't know was that someone else had been watching. 2 months earlier, Clare sat on the edge of her father's hospital bed, holding his frail hand tightly. Michael, her father, was the only family she had known. A kind man with a soft voice, a war veteran turned teacher who believed the world could be healed with books and love. But now, cancer had done what war never could taken him down. "Clare," he whispered, barely audible, "if anything happens to me, go to my brother Fred. He's not perfect, but he's my blood. He'll take care of you." Tears blurred Clare's eyes. "Don't say that, Dad. You're not going anywhere." Michael gave a faint smile. "Just promise me you'll trust him, at least until you can stand on your own." Clare nodded, not knowing that in doing so, she was walking herself into a lion's den. 2 weeks later, Michael passed. The funeral was small, just a few neighbors, former students, and of course, Fred. He arrived in a black Mercedes, wearing an expensive grey suit, dark shades hiding his unreadable eyes. He pulled Clare into a hug. "You're safe with me now," he said. At first, he was warm, kind even. He bought her clothes, transferred her to a better school, cooked breakfast some mornings. But behind the smiles, something was wrong. Fred was too eager to touch her shoulder. His eyes lingered too long when she walked past. She tried to push away the discomfort, blaming it on grief and loneliness. But it wasn't just in her head. One night, Clare was studying in the small room Fred gave her when he walked in without knocking. He had been drinking. His breath was sharp with alcohol. "You remind me of your mother," he murmured, sitting on the bed beside her. Clare's heart pounded. "I should go to bed." He touched her hand. "I said, you remind me of her." That night, he committed the abomination and forced himself on her. Something shattered in Clare. She didn't tell anyone. Who would believe her? She was just a girl, an orphan, living on an uncle's mercy. But things didn't stop, they got worse. Each day, Fred grew more possessive, more demanding, more cruel. Then, one morning, she vomited. At first, she thought it was stress. But the sickness returned again and again. A test confirmed the unthinkable. She was pregnant. When she told Fred, he slapped her. "You stupid girl," he shouted. "Do you want to destroy me?" Clare fell to the ground, holding her cheek, stunned. "You did this to me. I didn't ask for any of it." Fred panicked. If anyone found out, he could lose everything: the estate, the respect, the illusion he worked so hard to build after his brother's death. A respected businessman sleeping with his teenage niece? The shame would be unbearable. But his shame turned to rage. Not just at the situation, but at Clare herself. Why did she get all the love? Why did Michael leave everything to her in the will? He had seen it. Clare would inherit the house, the pension, the land in Enugu, all of it. Fred felt robbed, Again. So he made a plan. He told Claire he was taking her to a private clinic, somewhere peaceful to handle things. She wanted to believe him. She packed her bag, held her belly, and hoped maybe this nightmare would end. But when they got there, it wasn't a hospital. It was a worn-down building off a lonely road. A man in a leather jacket waited by the gate. Fred turned to her. "Get out." Claire blinked. "Where are we?" "You're going with him." "What?" "No. Fred, I trusted you. You were never supposed to exist, Claire. Not like this." The man dragged her away. Claire screamed and kicked, but Fred didn't flinch. He got back into the car and drove off like she never mattered. But as the dust settled on that lonely road, hidden in the tall grass nearby, a young bike rider who had been resting in the shade saw it all. He started his engine. This wasn't over. The rickety building stood like a forgotten relic on the outskirts of town. No signboard, no neighbors, just bush, gravel, and secrets. Inside, the air was stale with heat, sweat, and something darker. The smell of people who had lost their names. Claire was thrown onto a mattress on the floor of a small room. Her hands were tied, her legs too. She cried until her throat burned, but no one came. The man who brought her there said nothing, just locked the door behind him and left. She tried to count the minutes, then the hours. But time in that place wasn't measured by clocks. It was measured by fear. And outside, the boy on the bike was watching. His name was Daniel, 18 years old, with a scruffy dreadlocks, wearing t-shirt 2 sizes too big, and a delivery bag always strapped to his back. He was the kind of boy everyone overlooked, quiet, fast on a bike, and always around the edges of other people's lives. He had pulled off the road that afternoon to rest, parked under a tree beside the fence of that strange compound. He was chewing roasted groundnuts when the van pulled up. He saw a pregnant girl dragged out, screaming. He saw the man in the suit too clean for this kind of place get back in and leave without looking back. Something felt wrong. Daniel waited until the man guarding the gate stepped away to smoke before he crept closer, using the tall grass for cover. Through a cracked window, he saw her, the girl, crying, tied up, and suddenly he couldn't walk away. He didn't know her name. He didn't know the story, but he knew fear when he saw it. That night, Daniel returned, this time with tools. He had no plan, just a heart too big for his chest, and the memory of his mother telling him, "Never ignore a crying girl, Danny. Never." Inside, Claire was numb. The room was small, with nothing but a bucket, a torn blanket, and the sharp edges of betrayal cutting at her mind. She kept replaying the moment Fred sold her off. His eyes, so cold and so empty without remorse. She thought about her father, his promises and how he trusted Fred and he would protect her. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered into the dark. "I tried." Then she heard something, a soft metallic sound, a scratch, a whisper. She froze. Footsteps? Was the man coming back? But no. A soft voice whispered through the window. "Hey, are you okay?" She crawled toward the sound. "Who's there?" "Shh. My name's Daniel. I saw them bring you here. I came back." Claire's heart raced. Was this real? Another trap? "Why?" she whispered. "I don't know," he replied. "You looked like you needed someone." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "Please, help me." "I will, but we have to wait. I'll be back tomorrow night. Be ready." And he was gone. The next day crawled by. The man returned once to drop food, bread, and sachet water. Claire barely touched it. Her body was weak, but her hope had returned. Daniel, a stranger, but maybe her only way out. That night, as promised, he came back. This time, Daniel brought a crowbar. It took nearly 30 minutes, but he managed to force open a loose wooden panel at the back of the building. Claire crawled through, belly first, her hands raw from being tied for so long. When she stood outside, breathing fresh air for the first time in days, she collapsed into Daniel's arms. "Thank you," she whispered, sobbing. "I don't know why you did this." "Because I would want someone to do the same for my sister," Daniel said. They ran. Daniel's bike was too small for the two of them, so he walked, pushing it beside them as they moved through back roads, avoiding major streets. He knew the town well, knew which shortcuts were safe, which paths were quiet. By morning, they reached his homier, one-room apartment behind a mechanic's shop. It wasn't much. A mattress, a fan, a radio held together by masking tape. But to Clare, it was heaven. She sat on the mattress, wrapped in a blanket, drinking hot water. Daniel handed her his mother's old wrapper and turned away while she changed. "I'll find you help," he said. "Someone to take care of you." Clare shook her head. "He'll find me. He's rich and connected." Daniel looked at her, quiet. "Tell me everything." And she did. The truth poured out of her like water from a broken jar. She told him about her father, about Fred, about the pregnancy, about the will, about the van. Every word stabbed Daniel with anger. "So, he took everything from you," he said, his eyes burning. "And impregnated you?" Clare nodded, tears streaming. "And he'll never stop." But Daniel wasn't afraid. He knew people. Not important people, but loud ones. Men who fixed tires and heard rumors. Mechanics who heard gossip while tuning engines. Taxi drivers who knew which politicians were sleeping with who. It didn't take long. In 3 days, Daniel had names and a place. Fred had moved Clare's inheritance into a private account. He'd sold the family house. And rumor had it, he was already shopping for a new car, celebrating the accidental disappearance of his late brother's orphan. Daniel knew then they had to fight back. But how? They had no money, no power, no voice. Then, Clare said something that changed everything. "My father had a lawyer, a good one. He was handling the will." Daniel's eyes lit up. "Do you know his name?" Clare nodded. "Mr. Bishop. He was Daddy's old friend." Daniel found the man's office. A 2-story building in town, painted cream with peeling paint on the gate. Mr. Bishop was shocked to see Clare alive. "They told me you ran away," he exclaimed. "Fred said you were troubled, unstable." Clare trembled. "He lied. He tried to erase me." Mr. Bishop stared, then stood. "This changes everything. The will. Fred never told me you were pregnant, or that you disappeared. We have legal ground." But Mr. Bishop warned them it wouldn't be easy. Fred had money, influence, friends in high places. If they wanted justice, it would take more than truth. They'd need proof. Daniel remembered something. The van. The man who took Clare. What if he could be found? With Mr. Bishop's help, they filed a legal report. Clare officially accused Fred of abuse, illegal confinement, and attempted trafficking. It was risky, dangerous. But it was the first time Clare felt powerful. 1 week later, Daniel returned from the market with news. "I found the van." Clare blinked. "What?" "I saw its same plate number, parked by a warehouse near the old slaughterhouse. I followed the driver, took pictures, got his face." He showed her the photos. Mr. Bishop confirmed the man had prior drug running, extortion. If he could be brought in, he might talk. And he did. Under pressure and a quiet deal made with Mr. Bishop, the man confessed everything. How Fred paid him, where they met, what the girl looked like, and that he was told the girl must disappear. With that, Mr. Bishop filed a court injunction. Fred was served the next morning. The news spread like wildfire. Prominent businessman accused of impregnating and selling off orphaned niece. Radio stations, local blogs, neighborhood gossip. And Fred? He panicked. He tried to deny it, claimed Clare was lying, a troubled girl looking for fame. But too many things didn't add up. Why was the lawyer never informed she disappeared? Why did Fred move funds meant for Clare into private offshore accounts? Then the DNA test came. Clare's child was Fred's, and the world turned upside down. But just when Clare thought the worst was over, someone broke into Daniel's apartment. They didn't steal anything. They left a warning. "Stay out of this. Or next time, it won't be a knock." Clare and Daniel had poked a hornet's nest. Fred was desperate, and desperate men are dangerous. Clare sat in the corner that night, holding her belly, staring at the broken lock on the door. Daniel sat beside her, a wooden bat in his hands. "They want you gone," he whispered. Clare didn't cry. "They'll have to kill me first." And outside, in the shadows, someone was already watching. The court was packed. Reporters, family, friends, lawyers, strangers with no business being there. It was as if the entire town had gathered to watch what had once been a well-kept family secret explode into scandal. Outside, protesters waved signs that read, "Justice for Clare," while others whispered that the accusations were too wild to be true. Fred sat stiffly at the defendant's table, dressed in a navy blue suit, freshly shaved, and wearing the expression of a man wrongfully accused. His lawyer, a high-priced professional with slick hair and a sharp tongue, was already preparing to paint Clare as an unstable orphan with a history of emotional instability. But Clare wasn't alone anymore. She entered the courtroom with Daniel beside her and Mr. Bishop at her front, guiding her every step like a father would. Her belly was now fully visible. Every time she moved, someone in the room whispered. She could feel their eyes crawling all over her, judging, doubting, gossiping. But she didn't flinch. She had come to fight. The first week of trial was brutal. Fred's lawyer tore into Clare on the stand, painting her as a confused girl looking to destroy the reputation of her generous uncle. "You say Mr. Fred molested you? Why didn't you report it immediately?" Clare looked the man in the eye. "Because I was a scared girl. I didn't have anyone. And I knew nobody would believe me. And yet, here you are, with no physical evidence. No video. Just your word." Clare felt her breath catch in her throat. She looked at the judge, then at the jury, then at Fred, who smirked slightly, as if confident he'd already won. But the tide turned when the man who abducted Clare was brought in. Dressed in a faded prison jumpsuit, he walked into the courtroom in handcuffs. His testimony was blunt, raw, unpolished. "Yes, Fred paid me to take her. He said she was a family disgrace, that if I handled it, he'd pay double." Fred's lawyer objected. "Your Honor, this witness has a criminal record." The judge cut in. "That doesn't negate a confession, Counselor." Next came the audio recording Daniel captured from a confrontation with the van driver, clearly mentioning Fred's name and the amount he was paid. Still, it wasn't enough. Fred's team argued that the witness was unreliable, that the recording could have been manipulated, that the girl was faking everything for money. Then Mr. Bishop played his final card. It was silent when the lab technician read the result. The paternity test shows with 99.9% accuracy that Mr. Fred Otis is the biological father of the unborn child carried by Miss Clare Otis. Gasps, murmurs. The judge banged the gavel for silence. Fred's jaw clenched. For the first time, his mask cracked. But the trial wasn't over. Fred's lawyer launched a last-minute attack questioning Clare's mental health, bringing up her therapy sessions after her father died, trying to twist her trauma into delusion. Then something unexpected happened. A woman stood up in the courtroom, late 30s, petite and nervous. "I have something to say." The judge paused. "Who are you?" She looked at Clare, then at Fred. "My name is Anita. I used to work for Mr. Fred as a maid." Fred's face went white. The judge allowed her to speak, and when she did, everything changed. "I saw things I regret keeping quiet about. He was always around that girl, always touching her. I thought it was just fatherly affection. But then one day, I saw him go into her room, late at night. She was sleeping. He locked the door behind him." The courtroom went still. "Why didn't you report it?" asked the prosecutor. "I needed the job. I was a single mother. But after she disappeared, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't have the courage to speak. Until now." Fred's lawyer tried to object, tried to dismiss her as a liar. But the damage was done. The court adjourned for the day. Outside, the press erupted. "New witness speaks in shocking incest trial." Cameras flashed. Headlines exploded. And Fred? He didn't show up the next day. Clare and Daniel sat in Mr. Bishop's office, staring at the news report on the TV. Fred was on the run. A warrant had been issued for his arrest, but no one could find him. His house was empty. His accounts had been drained. Clare felt panic rise again. "He's going to escape, isn't he?" Mr. Bishop shook his head. "Not if we stop him." That night, Daniel went out again, this time with help. 3 of his friends who rode bikes with him in the streets spread out through nearby towns, listening, asking, bribing gatemen. And then a tip came in. Fred had been spotted near the Benin border, hiding in a guest house, waiting to flee to Cotonou. Claire begged Daniel not to go, but he promised, "I'll be careful. I won't let him vanish." Meanwhile, Fred sat in the dim light of a guest house room, pacing, sweating. He'd never planned for this. He thought Claire would vanish. That Daniel was just a street boy with a savior complex, that Mr. Bishop could be silenced. But now, he was a fugitive. His name plastered all over social media, incest predator on the run. He turned off the TV. He didn't care anymore. He had one goal: disappear. He reached for the fake passport in the drawer. Almost laughed at how easy it used to be to solve problems with money. Then, just as he zipped his bag shut, a knock came at the door. He froze. Knock. Knock. Room service. He didn't order anything. Fred opened the door cautiously, too cautiously. The man at the door wasn't holding a tray. He was holding a badge. "Fred Otis, you're under arrest." The next week, Fred sat again in court, this time with his wrists cuffed, surrounded by security. His face was pale, his lips tight, his pride gone. Claire sat calmly, no longer shaking. This time, she would speak. When asked if she had any final words, she rose slowly and looked at the man who once called her daughter. "You took everything from me. My father, my childhood, my safety. You lied, touched me, used me, and tried to erase me. But I survived. And one day, my child will know the truth that her mother fought." The room erupted in applause. The judge ruled. Fred was found guilty of unlawful sex with a minor, trafficking, obstruction of justice, and attempted escape, and therefore sentenced to 25 years in prison. Claire didn't cry, not in public, but when she stepped outside and saw Daniel waiting with a bouquet of wildflowers he picked himself, she let herself smile. "You did it," he said. "No," she replied. "We did." But their peace wouldn't last long. That night, a letter arrived at Mr. Bishop's officino return address. Inside was a photo. A newborn baby, wrapped in a hospital blanket. Next to it, a note. "Your client isn't the only one who's pregnant. Fred had others, and they know how to hide." And Mr. Bishop stared at the message, heart racing. Claire wasn't the only victim, and the story was far from over. The morning breeze carried a strange chill, even though the sun was out. Inside Mr. Bishop's office, Claire clutched the photograph tightly, her hands trembling. It wasn't just the image of the newborn that shook her, it was the message that came with it. Fred had others, and they know how to hide. Daniel stood behind her, jaw tight, fists clenched. Who would send something like this? Is it a threat? A warning? Mr. Bishop took the envelope and examined it. It was hand-delivered. No postage stamp. Whoever sent this knew where to find me, and what they were doing. Claire sat down slowly. "There are more victims." "Yes," Bishop said grimly. "And they're still out there, probably silenced by fear, or worse." The next few days passed in a haze of uncertainty. Fred was behind bars, but the darkness he'd spread was far from gone. Every time Claire closed her eyes, she saw that baby's face. A face that didn't belong to her child, yet somehow felt connected to her pain. The media frenzy refused to die down. The court victory had made headlines, and Claire's face was on every screen. Offers came in interviews, book deals, even NGO sponsorships, but she turned them all down. Not because she wasn't grateful, but because her battle wasn't over. "I won't sit on TV and pretend I'm okay," she told Daniel. "Not when there's another girl out there who might be going through what I did." Daniel, who now worked part-time as Mr. Bishop's assistant, began helping him dig deeper. With Bishop's legal contacts and Daniel's street smarts, they started reaching out anonymously through posters, messages, safe helplines, inviting anyone with a story to come forward. 1 week later, someone did. Her name was Angela. She was 22 now, but when she was 16, she had worked as a cleaner at one of Fred's former guest houses. Like Claire, she had no family, just a cousin who later kicked her out. Fred, she said, noticed her one day and started giving her money. Pocket change, he'd called it. Then one day, she passed out after drinking a soda he gave her. When she woke up, she wasn't in her bed. She was in his house, and her life changed, forever. She became pregnant too, but Fred forced her into hiding, threatened to ruin her if she spoke. He kept her in a rented apartment in another state, only checking in through a handler. When she gave birth, the baby was taken from her. No papers, no name. Angela never saw her child again. Claire's heart shattered listening to her. It was like hearing her own story on repeat. But Angela brought something else with her, something that changed everything. A journal. Inside were handwritten records, payments, locations, even photos of other girls. Claire flipped through the pages, horror growing with each turn. Fred hadn't just abused his own niece. He had been running a secret ring using his wealth and influence to prey on vulnerable girls, impregnate them, and then sell or hide the children. There were at least 5 names in the journal, possibly more. Angela had stolen the journal the day she escaped. Mr. Bishop sat stunned as Claire placed the journal on his desk. "This isn't just a family scandal," he said. "It's a criminal enterprise. We need to get the police involved federal." Claire nodded. "Let's expose all of it." The operation took a month, with Mr. Bishop coordinating with the anti-trafficking unit and Daniel and Angela locating former victims. A full-scale investigation was launched. Arrests were made Fred's former assistants, drivers, and even one nurse who had delivered 2 of the babies. One by one, the girls were rescued or contacted. 3 had children that were missing. 2 had lost them during illegal adoptions. But now they had a voice, and the world was listening. Claire's case, which had started as a twisted tale of betrayal, became the beginning of a movement. She was invited to speak at conferences, schools, women's centers. One morning, after speaking at a local orphanage, a woman approached her quietly, holding a toddler. "His name is Jaden," the woman said. "I adopted him through a private deal 2 years ago. But after seeing the news, I got scared. I had to know. I had him tested." Claire's heart stopped. The boy was Angela's son, reunited after 3 painful years. Angela fell to her knees the moment she saw him, clutching him as if she'd never let go again. Claire wept too, not just for Angela, but for herself. Because even though her baby hadn't been taken, a part of her had once been. Now, she was taking it back. 9 months later, Claire sat on a wooden bench outside a small but beautiful house built with NGO support. She was now a mother. Her baby girl, Hope, was asleep in her arms. Daniel walked out of the house with a bowl of warm ogi and akara. "Your breakfast, madam." Claire smiled. "You spoil me. I'm just practicing for the future. You know, when we finally build that women's shelter," they had talked about it for months, turning pain into purpose. A safe space for abused and abandoned girls. A home for the forgotten. Fred's seized properties were sold, and a portion of the funds, thanks to Mr. Bishop's legal brilliance, had been awarded to Claire and the victims. With that money, she bought land, and construction had already begun. "I used to think my life ended when my father died," Claire whispered. "Then it ended again when Fred betrayed me." Daniel sat beside her. "But you're still here." "Not just here," she said. "I'm rising." He took her hand gently, looking into her eyes. "You turned your worst nightmare into a reason for others to breathe. You didn't just survive, Claire, you broke the cycle." She looked down at Hope, then at the orange sky blooming over the trees. "No," she whispered. "We did." And far away, inside a prison cell, Fred sat alone. A copy of the front page lay on the floor beside him. "Victim Builds Foundation. To shelter trafficking survivors." He tore the paper apart in silence. But it was too late. The world had heard the truth. And now, so would generations. What is your view about this story? I would like to read your view. If you enjoy this story, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel for more interesting stories.